Hey guys, Evan Ork here, back with another video, and today we're going to be doing a full EAORO Productions timeline on my Godzilla fan film franchise. So, let's begin. In May of 1930 in San Diego, California, a man named Carlson Van Divers was born. His younger brother, Edward Van Divers, was born 3 years later in November of 1933. 20 years later, Carlson Van Divers would grow up and join the U.S. military in early 1950 at the height of U.S. nuclear weapon testing. Meanwhile, his brother Edward had moved to Japan to start a new life under U.S.-Japanese occupation. After 4 years of military service, Private Carl Van Divers was given a final mission before being granted honorable discharge. He was tasked with dropping an atom bomb on a newly discovered island known as Odo Island. After being given a bomber, he flew the plane over the island and dropped it. Unfortunately, the plane couldn't climb upon impact, and Private Van Divers' plane crashed amidst the nuclear fallout. After being seriously burned, he discovered the atom bomb and created the world's first kaiju, Godzilla. He would escape the island after discovering the atom bomb had given him powers such as the ability to fire a powerful red beam that can kill easily. It could also control minds if done correctly. After arriving in Tokyo, he would discover the city in ruins. He would blame himself for creating Godzilla and enter a lifelong mission of killing him and any other kaiju that ever existed. We now enter the Showa era as we fast forward to a year later in 1955, and Godzilla has now fought Earth's second kaiju to appear on the planet, Baragon. It is Godzilla's first major fight, but he ultimately wins. 2 years pass, and after Godzilla creates havoc in Washington, D.C., two journalists aim to boost their egos as famous reporters and try to create a Ultraman-Godzilla battle. When they provoke Ultraman to change course and attack Godzilla through nuclear weapons, they enter a dastardly fight. However, they end up teaming up to defeat King Ghidorah. Another 2 years pass, and this time, Godzilla and the U.S. military are facing a grave threat. Aliens from Jupiter have sent Argulon to attack Godzilla on Earth. In the end, both Godzilla and Mothra Larva team up to defeat Argulon. After Argulon was defeated in 1959, the main alien leader who sent him was killed during the battle. In his final moments, he sent a second-in-command to finish his task in destroying Earth and killing Godzilla. The second-in-command officer then hijacks the U.S. military's Megaton project and uses it to team up with Monster X to kill Godzilla. After a group of citizens escape the Monster X and Megaton attacks, they team up to awaken Godzilla on Monster Island and lead him back to the city. After Godzilla teams up with Jet Jaguar, they then defeat Monster X and Megaton and officially destroy the remaining aliens who are left. During the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, a Soviet commander in Havana orders a nuclear strike on the United States. The missile is rerouted and hits Odo Island, creating a second Godzilla, now known as Anti-Godzilla. With the help of Rodan, Godzilla is able to later defeat Anti-Godzilla. It is 13 years later in 1975 and the Vietnam War comes to a close. After a U.S. veteran named Leonard returns home, he is stunned to find his brother dead after he is killed by Mechagodzilla. The loss of his brother changes Leonard for the worst as he, and two others, join together to create Mechatitanosaurus and use him to kill Mechagodzilla and Godzilla. While Mechagodzilla does get killed at the hands of Mechatitanosaurus, Godzilla is reluctant enough to defeat Mechatitanosaurus before it kills him. 2 years pass and it's now 1977. After a series of Gaio sightings by Mount Fuji, the world is greatly concerned. Godzilla then joins forces with Mogira to kill Gaios, all the while Godzilla is given offspring to the world's first Godzilla egg. Gaios then kills Godzilla, becoming the first kaiju to do so. Luckily, the Godzilla egg hatches and the second Godzilla to ever exist kills Gaios. By the end of this film, the Godzilla that Carl Van Divers created is now dead. It is 11 years later in 1988, and it is the final Showa film. Two global criminals manage to steal the body of Bolton and travel within it so it can be used for evil intent. The body is used to possess even more people, including a top U.S. government official. Then, at the end of the film, Baragon and Godzilla team up to kill Bolton, destroying Bolton and killing the two criminals. We now enter the Heisei era of the timeline. Young boat skipper Ronnie Adlai is tasked with managing a Monarch-funded naval operation despite not being a Monarch official. This operation involves sending a small boat of a few armed men to an island with a notoriously mysterious past. After arriving on the island, they discover a virus, a malicious kaiju. Virus kills everyone who traveled to the island except Ronnie, who travels back to warn about Virus. We later discover Virus, as well as Gabra, are mind-controlled by a group of natives who live on the island. They send both to U.S. soil. Godzilla then comes to fight Virus, but after a tense fight, Godzilla is killed and the natives invade the United States. They then capture Ronnie Adlai in the process and take them to their new base, victorious. A year passes and the natives have captured the city of Nashville, Tennessee through their invasion of the United States. Ronnie is then rescued from captivity through a Monarch military operation. After being sent to a wartime Monarch base, he meets General Emerson Flanagan. Flanagan warns Ronnie about his deep desire to strike back against the natives, saying they need to be patient in their approach to recapture the city. Ronnie then meets a fellow soldier, Don, who sympathizes with his aggressive approach. Ronnie, Don, and a few other men disobey orders and go into native territory. After discovering that the natives have technology to revive dead kaiju, they use it to revive Godzilla, who then kills Virus. The native leader is then killed by Ronnie. Then the city is freed of native military control. 3 years pass by, and Ronnie and Don are widely credited for defeating the Nashville natives despite disobeying orders. After General Flanagan makes them Monarch officials, they are tasked with going to Monarch to investigate whether the technology Ronnie used to revive Godzilla might have accidentally created a kaiju growing within Godzilla's body. After arriving on Monster Island, they meet Rick, a U.S. veteran who has been stranded on Monster Island for 30 years after his battleship sank off the coast. The three of them then discover that Godzilla had vomited much of the G-cells that were growing a new kaiju inside of him. After they return back to the U.S., they later learn the G-cells had manifested itself into Iris. Godzilla then teams up with Batra to fight Iris and successfully kills him. Another 3 years pass and Don has gone missing. All the while, Rick has become a Monarch official himself, having been brought back to civilization. After Godzilla went radioactive at a dangerous level, he transformed into Burning Godzilla. Ronnie and Rick are then tasked with bringing Burning Godzilla to Planet X, which is under Monarch control, so to risk avoiding a situation where Godzilla goes nuclear and destroys Earth. After bringing Burning Godzilla to the planet, they meet Private Hemsworth, who controls Monarch forces on Planet X. He warns them about exilian terrorists known as the Katana, who wish to rid Monarch of control of Planet X. We learn that throughout all of this, Private Carl Van Divers, who now goes by the name of Krolin, is the leader behind it. Don is later revealed to be an exilian who was a spy for the Katana and that worked for Krolin. After a tense battle between Godzilla, Mothra, and a Planet X kaiju known as Alien Hipporyto, Godzilla dies a second time, going nuclear and destroying half the planet. Mothra survives and then becomes Queen of the Monsters. As Mothra becomes Queen of the Monsters, we learn that the ship carrying Krolin and Don crashed on Earth after being thrown off course due to the Planet X Godzilla explosion. Don dies during the crash, and Krolin hires another assistant of his, Yuji, to replace Don. Ronnie and Rick make their way back to Earth as well. With Ronnie devastated from learning the truth about his friend Don, now Vice President Flanagan goes on a mission with Ronnie and Rick to safeguard Mothra's egg on Infant Island, so to secure her lineage. While finding a Mothra egg, they also find a Godzilla egg. Meanwhile, James Huxley, a Monarch soldier who works directly for Vice President Flanagan, discovers Krolin's ship wreckage, but is hit by Krolin with a red beam. He survives and makes his way back to Monarch headquarters. Back on Infant Island, however, both Mothra and Godzilla eggs hatch and team up to fight Guiron, a kaiju local to Infant Island. They then defeat him, and the new Godzilla now becomes the third Godzilla to ever exist. 7 years pass, and James Huxley begins to realize the slow but steady growth of Krolin's presence in his mind. This has persisted ever since he encountered Krolin in 1998. Meanwhile, Krolin's assistant Yuji has built TW-01, a time machine for Krolin. Krolin instructs Yuji to go back in time to 1965 and steal the updated oxygen destroyer created by the son of Dr. Shirazawa. This new oxygen destroyer has the power to kill all life on Earth, and Krolin, who is so desperate to kill Godzilla, believes that killing all life on Earth is better than to let life continue under kaijus roaming the planet. During a battle between Godzilla and Sanda, Yuji steals the updated oxygen destroyer and takes it with him as he goes back to 2005. After Yuji steals the oxygen destroyer and heads back to 2005, TW-01 malfunctions and explodes upon arrival, killing Yuji but leaving the new oxygen destroyer intact for Krolin to use. Krolin spends the next 7 years rebuilding TW-01 himself. It is now 2012, and Krolin hires a former assistant from Planet X, Vorgani, to kill Vice President Flanagan, who has by this time become the president of Monarch. After he was assassinated, James Huxley, the vice president of Monarch, is prevented from assuming the presidency due to Monarch military overreach led by General Gunter. Meanwhile, Cretaceous Ghidorah and Hedorah are causing havoc around the world and are confronted by Godzilla and Gorosaurus. While Godzilla and Gorosaurus defeat the two of them in the final battle, General Gunter raids the room that Vorgani is hiding in. In the room, Vorgani has TW-01 and the updated oxygen destroyer ready for use. After General Gunter orders for him to be shot, Ronnie, Rick, and James storm the room and demand he halt any further force given the danger of what materials exist in the room. During their scuttle, Ronnie accidentally falls into TW-01 and is sent back in time. Then, Vorgani, who is barely alive, activates the oxygen destroyer and destroys the entire planet, as Krolin appears to have finally got what he wanted. We are now taken back in time to Tokyo 1954, as Ronnie was sent to the past before the Earth was destroyed. He gets out of the time machine and meets Edward Van Divers, Krolin's brother. He does so without knowing him or his brother's past. After Edward helps Ronnie collect stored radiation from a local Monarch facility, Ronnie fixes TW-01 and sets it on a course to 2012, right before he himself went back in time. After witnessing Godzilla's first global appearance and attacking Tokyo, he travels back to 2012 and kills Vorgani before he is able to destroy the Earth. Krillin then attacks Monarch headquarters and further strengthens his grip on James's mind as they make eye contact during the attack. James is the official president of Monarch following the death of President Flanagan. Ronnie and Rick are given witness to James's accelerated strange behavior now that Krillin has complete control of James's mind. He orders Mechagodzilla to kill all kaijus on Earth. After the death of every kaiju on Earth but Godzilla and Mothra, both of them team up to defeat Mechagodzilla while Ronnie, Rick, and General Gunter rebel from Monarch after launching a failed coup against James. Mechagodzilla then gets defeated, but Ronnie and his crewmates are forced into exile in the southwest United States. It is now 5 years later. Ronnie, Rick, and General Gunter are still in exile in the deserts of Utah. Krillin, the secret leader of Monarch, travels to Planet X to work with remnants of the Katana on defeating Godzilla, Mothra, and a new Earth kaiju, Gamera. The Katana offers Krillin assistance in awakening a shape-shifting kaiju, known in their culture as Kiritome. As Kiritome is sent to Earth, Ronnie, Rick, General Gunter, and their former associate, Governor Hemsworth, work together to fight Krillin and James head-on. Kiritome successfully kills Mothra and Gamera, but is ultimately defeated by Godzilla. Meanwhile, after a long fight, Ronnie kills Krillin on the top of a cliff, ending his mind control over James and restoring civility back to Monarch after 5 years of autocratic control. 3 months pass, and with Ronnie and Rick having defeated their arch-nemesis and getting pardoned by the federal government for doing so, Rick tells Ronnie he plans to move to Australia to live out the rest of his life. After a sad goodbye, their friendship ends after 30 strong years. We then fast forward 20 years to Ronnie, who is now 73, talking in a therapy session about how he has missed Rick so much since he passed away earlier in 2032. Given Ronnie's shocking projection in life compared to his dreams of being a boat skipper, his psychologist tells him he can still live the rest of his life doing what he always wanted to do prior to the 1991 virus boating mission. He takes his advice with pure and utter happiness. 62 years later, in 2107, we learn that Godzilla, the last kaiju on Earth, disappeared without a trace in the Pacific Ocean. Given his presumed death, he would be the third and final Godzilla of this timeline. Following this event, there would never be another kaiju appearance on Earth ever again. And that is the end of this timeline video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys later, and bye-bye.